Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Michael Kim, and I'm a senior analyst here at Zacks Smallcap Research. And welcome to the next episode of our CEO Fireside Chats. Today, I'm happy to have with us Adrian Rawcliffe, Chief Executive Officer of Adaptimmune, a company we recently initiated coverage on with a $3 price target. Adaptimmune is a biopharmaceutical company focused on designing, developing, manufacturing, and delivering innovative cell therapies to treat cancers across multiple solid tumor types. The stock trades on the NASDAQ under the ticker ADAP. So with that, Ad, great to see you. Really appreciate your time today.
Thanks for having me.
So I think this is a great time to sit down and chat with you for a number of reasons, but probably most importantly, Adaptimmune is seemingly on the cusp of transitioning to a commercial stage cell therapy company, which I'm sure you'll dive into. So we've got a few topics that I think are top of mind with investors. So maybe just to start, be helpful if you could just provide a brief introduction to the company, your mission, and how Adaptimmune is maybe different from other biotech companies, specifically as it relates to your in-house manufacturing capabilities and the infrastructure that has been built up really from the start of the company.
Thanks, Michael. Happy to. So Adaptimmune is a engineered T-cell therapy company focused on engineered T-cells for solid tumors. That's been our focus really since we founded the company, which was about 16 years ago. And at my Investor Day that we had a couple of months ago, I said that it probably isn't coincidence that Adaptimmune is the company that is going to put probably the first, probably the second, maybe the first 3 engineered T-cells for solid tumors on the market, because that's been our mission since we started the company. We've been diligently focused on that through thick and thin. And the objective, therefore, is to, and our mission is to redefine how cancer is treated using engineered T-cell therapies. Our platform is uniquely designed to do that in the solid tumor space with engineered TCRs. And we've had the opportunity to build Adaptimmune from the ground up, specifically as a cell therapy company. And that's very different to if you were designing a monoclonal antibody company or a small molecule company. And you referred to the manufacturing capabilities, which we've been investing in for most of the last decade in-house. And the afami-cel product will be launched out of the facility where we manufactured for the entire pivotal trial, where we did all of the preclinical and BLA enabling work. And as such, I think that's a real strength for us. But it's just one of the capabilities that I think defines a cell therapy company. And because we've only been focused ever on cell therapies, we are completely dedicated to cell therapies, and we have designed all the capabilities necessary to design, develop, and deliver those, including now our commercial organization, which is on the precipice of launching afami-cel when it is approved by the FDA, hopefully on the PDUFA date in August.
That's great. Appreciate the color there, Ed. So maybe second, don't want to get too deep into the weeds, but I do think it would be helpful if you could walk through some of the data that has come out from your clinical trials and why those results are so encouraging as it relates to the opportunity for your cell therapies across a number of different indications.
Yeah, so I think it's really important that for us to think that when you're thinking of new modality of therapy like cell therapy, it's important that it does something fundamentally different to what other therapies can deliver. And so we've focused on areas where we've seen clear signs of significant and obvious patient benefit early, and because those are the areas where we're going to be able to demonstrate the unique value of cell therapy. So for afami-cel, our first product, the pivotal trial for afami-cel was Spearhead 1. Spearhead 1 was a single-arm study in advanced synovial sarcoma. So this is synovial sarcoma, a rare soft tissue sarcoma, and this is second-line plus. So after patients have received chemotherapy. The current existing treatments for these patients are quite poor. With relatively low response rates to second-line plus treatments, response rates in the single-digit percentages or maybe into the teens. Those responses tend to be short-lived, and these patients have very poor survival outlook, usually measured in months, less than a year for second plus line setting. So against that, Spearhead 1, cohort 1, which is the pivotal cohort, delivered a almost 49% response rate, 39%. Those responses are deep and durable responses. So the median duration of response was 12 months. And now as that data matures, we're able to see that patients who respond gain real benefit from this therapy. So, for example, 70% of them are still alive at 2 years, which is quite remarkable given the prognosis that these patients would have had without afami-cel. And they have a long treatment-free interval period of almost 17 months. Again, hugely beneficial to these late-stage patients. This is a one-off therapy. So having taken these cells, having been infused with these cells, which are engineered from the patient's own T cells, they have the opportunity to go for long periods without chemotherapy, which can be exceptionally debilitating. So all of those data were published in the Lancet earlier this year, and I think it's sort of fairly well established that in this space, soft tissue sarcomas, cell therapy, engineered T cell therapy can be quite effective. That was backed up by the data from our second product, lete-cel. Lete-cel targets a different target to afami-cel, but is in the same sort of soft tissue sarcoma space. Lete-cel also, in its pivotal trial, delivered a 40% response rate and about 11 and a bit months of duration of response. At its interim data, the full data set for that will be later on this year. And then beyond that, uza-cel, which is a next generation version of afami-cel targeting MAGE-A4, which we assessed in a basket trial across 11 different solid tumors that express MAGE-A4. Overall response rate there was 35% across all of the tumors. And in things like ovarian cancer, it was more like 40%. In bladder cancer, we're looking at a response rate looking more like 50%. So really significant efficacy signals in those earlier stage trials. And I think demonstrating that, for these very late stage patients, engineered TCR T-cell therapy can deliver robust responses across a broad range of solid tumors. And that's really what the last few years of clinical data out of Adaptimmune have shown. And then what we've been doing with that is picking indications, sarcomas and ovarian cancer, where we can move forward to create registrable products from those signals.
It's great, super helpful. Appreciate that. Then I guess, as I alluded to earlier, I think one of the great parts of the story, at least in my mind, is really sort of the almost real-time transition, if you will, to a commercial stage cell therapy company. So I think it'd be great if you could just kind of talk a bit about that process and sort of the commercialization plan as it relates to afami-cel.
Sure, happy to. This is a key focus for us at the moment as we move towards our PDUFA in August. So I think we feel that we are absolutely the best owners of afami-cel and lete-cel. They're in the sarcoma space. We've been developing products in the space for the last decade. And so we understand the patients, we understand the centers, and this is a very concentrated patient group. These are rare indications. We estimate about 1,000 patients between afami-cel and lete-cel will have the right biomarkers to be eligible. That's 1,000 patients per year. And those patients are concentrated in sarcoma centers of excellence. And within the sarcoma centers of excellence, they're concentrated in the top sarcoma centers of excellence. And those are the places we did our clinical trials. So our commercial team, which is relatively small, it's about 30 people, is on board, all recruited and pushing hard to be ready to be able to commercialize afami-cel in August. And that team is already has relationships with the top 30 sarcoma centers of excellence. That's where we've done our clinical trials. And we're targeting to start launch in between 6 and 10 of those centers, build it up to 30 over the first 2 years, by which point we'll be launching lete-cel as well. And lete-cel will then go into the infrastructure that we have built for afami-cel. And there's almost 100% commercial synergies because it's exactly the same channels. So concentrated payer, concentrated provider group, concentrated patient group that we understand well. And we've got a team that's perfectly formed and specifically designed to commercialize a rare oncology cell therapy. And that's been the focus of us for the last couple of years, is building that capability. And it's great to be able to see it finally move into action.
For sure. Maybe if you could talk a bit about sort of the financial opportunity in terms of potential sales and margins over the next 3 to 5 years as you increasingly commercialize afami-cel and then launch lete-cel.
Yeah, so I think the patient group that we've now narrowed down onto is that 1,000 patients for afami-cel and lete-cel. That's split. About 400 of those patients are essentially afami-cel eligible patients, and then an incremental 600 are lete-cel patients. And the launches for those products are staggered by, as I said, 2 years. So afami-cel in 2024, lete-cel anticipated in 2026. And so we anticipate that we will that those patients at the moment have very few other options. And so it's important to understand this isn't unfortunately a highly competitive space. The patients have unfortunately very few other options. And so this is more like a rare disease commercialization opportunity than it is a sort of competitive oncology opportunity. Because if you are unfortunate enough to have metastatic synovial sarcoma and you have failed on first-line anthracycline-based chemotherapy, then it's not, and you are HLA positive and MAGE-A4 positive, then it's not a case of why you should have afami-cel versus something else. There really isn't another something else. So our objective is to get as many of the patients that are eligible as possible on to have afami-cel and access to afami-cel. And so this is a space where we think this unmet medical need will lead to, over time, deep penetration into those space. And really, as many of those patients as possible should be on afami-cel. And then when lete-cel is approved, the same is true for lete-cel. Now, so therefore, we're adopting a rare disease approach based on deep penetration and getting the patients into those centers of excellence. And the upshot of that is that when you combine that with pricing, which we've not been specific about because we haven't got approval yet, but we think should represent the rarity of the disease and the significant medical benefit that is being provided with afami-cel and lete-cel. When you think about that, we estimate a sales forecast of up to 400 million for afami-cel and lete-cel. And that's a really nice franchise. Whilst that's not a blockbuster, it has to be pointed out, this is in the launch indications and it's in the US only. So there's plenty of opportunity to build on that geographically with indication expansion into other rare MAGE-A4 expressing tumors. And so it's a really good starting point for us. And it's something we can address at a really decent margin for a company like Adaptimmune. So because we have in-house manufacturing and because we are relatively low overhead, because the capacity that we have is sort of appropriate for this type of market, we're going to be able to address that, we believe, at about a 70% gross margin. So cost of goods, we estimate, will be about 30% when we're up at sort of reasonable sales levels. So when you think about that, that's 400 million at the top line. You're dropping 220 million to the 280 million, sorry, to the gross margin. The manufacturing costs, the commercialization costs of this is relatively modest. We estimate 35 to 50 million. So this is cash flow generative for us from quite an early period of time. And really, that's important because that's what enables us to invest in the rest of the pipeline that's coming through, and also to end up as a standalone, independent, self-funding and revenue-generating biotechnology or cell therapy company.
Yeah, that's great. And then sort of you alluded to this earlier, but just looking beyond afami-cel, I think it would be helpful if you could talk a bit about the pipeline with respect to where things stand across your various products and indications, as well as any color on sort of expected timelines.
So behind afami-cel and lete-cel, which sort of refer to as our sarcoma franchise, the next product behind that is uza-cel. So uza-cel is a more potent version of afami-cel. It was designed specifically to using the same T-cell receptor as afami-cel, but with an added element that makes it a significantly more potent product. And because of that, it can produce responses across a broader range of tumors than afami-cel can. And we saw evidence of efficacy in a broad range of solid tumors in that SURPASS-1 trial with a 35% response rate. That is currently being developed in two different ways. The first way is that in a trial called SURPASS-3 in platinum-resistant ovarian cancer. And that trial is a phase 2 trial that has the potential to be registrational, that is actively recruiting. We anticipate enrollment in that trial will go through to 2025. At that point, we will be able to talk about interim data analyses that we will have conducted. Don't want to do that until we've fully enrolled the trial, obviously, for not wanting to bias any patient selection through that trial. The trial will formally read out in 2026 after we've had the opportunity to treat all of the patients and follow them for a period of time. And that has the opportunity, therefore, to be a registrable product in platinum-resistant ovarian cancer after that point in time. We haven't put a timeline on the BLA other than to say it's not unreasonable to think about afami-cel in 2024, lete-cel in 2026, and maybe uza-cel in 2028. So it's a nice progression for us into a broader range of tumor types. The second way that's being developed is that we recently just inked a partnership with Galapagos. Galapagos have a really interesting decentralized manufacturing platform that we're really excited to put uza-cel onto, in particular in head and neck cancer. In head and neck cancer, we've treated 5 patients with head and neck cancer with uza-cel. Every single patient had a profound anti-tumor effect, and 4 of the 5 were RECIST responses. So this is an unheard of response rate in head and neck cancer. But the challenge is that there were many patients who were unable to benefit from uza-cel because they were just not well enough coming into this. And head and neck cancer is one of those indications where patients can go downhill very, very quickly. And the opportunity to have this decentralized manufacturing platform with a vein-to-vein time of 7 days has the opportunity to really change the availability of products like uza-cel for patients with these rapidly progressing tumor types. So that's really exciting. That will go into a phase 1 trial on this new manufacturing platform and the potential for a readout in 2026 from that. Preclinically behind uza-cel, we have a couple of very large programs, one targeting PRAME, probably the most broadly expressed cancer testes antigen class target in the solid tumor space. And we'll be moving into the clinic with first and second generation approaches targeting PRAME. And then you might recall that last year we merged with a company called TCR Squared. TCR Squared had a platform called a truck platform, which is effectively a way of getting full TCR signaling, but with antibody targeting. And that truck-based platform, there's a program there targeting CD70. CD70 is particularly expressed in some hematological malignancies like AML, but also in solid tumors like renal cell carcinoma. So very large indications. And because that's not HLA restricted, those are very significant opportunities. And that has the opportunity to go into the clinic over the next couple of years. So I think quite a deep pipeline of engineered T cells. And I'm just going to point out that pipeline is a subset of what we've been working on for the last decade. These are the things we've prioritized to move forward because they represent the best risk reward opportunity for us. But there's a lot more in the pipeline, and the platform obviously has a lot more potential going forward.
Great. That's helpful. And then maybe just finally, I know you've been active on the financing front. I think you've raised upwards of 250 million since the beginning of the year. But it would be great if you could really speak about sort of how you're thinking about funding operations longer term, some of the different sources of capital that you could tap over time.
Yeah, so going into this year, it was clear that we needed to finance the company to be able to execute on the development and launch of our sarcoma franchise, afami-cel and lete-cel. And so we set out to do so. And I think given the nature of the company and the objective of becoming an independent standalone cell therapy company, that's generating its own revenues and is self-sustaining and returning capital over the long term. I think the reality is that those are almost always financed from a combination of sources. It's very rare that there's one particular source that enables the company to actually execute on all of that. And so we've been absolutely clear we are going to leverage both dilutive and non-dilutive sources of capital. And when the equity markets are looking more difficult, then there are non-dilutive sources that we can go to. And you've just seen the evidence of what we've done in the last 5 months or so with a tranche debt facility from Hercules and a significant business development deal with Galapagos, both of which, when combined, and a small equity use of the ATM, gives us that sort of access to $250 million, which I think puts us in a great position given in the run up to the launch. However, we almost certainly will be needing further financing, and we will take the same approach that we've taken in the past. We have significant pipeline and assets, and whilst we have the ability to move and develop those forward, I don't think we have the ability to exploit the entirety of the platform or the pipeline on a global basis in all of the indications that it could be developed in. And therefore, there's plenty of opportunity for incrementally valuable business development as the pharmaceutical industry wakes up to the emerging commercial solid tumor cell therapy space, which I think will be quite stimulating to the area. We don't, however, rule out that we will also undertake equity raise at an appropriate time, and also importantly at an appropriate valuation. But I think we've demonstrated that we don't need to rely on the capital markets to finance the mission of the company and the evolution into the commercial space.
Excellent. Appreciate the color. Ed, this has been great. I think it's clear that Adaptimmune has reached an inflection point where you and the team are able to really leverage the years of research and clinical studies, as well as the infrastructure and the capabilities that have been built up over the years to really help transform the lives of patients dealing with cancer. So again, really appreciate your time today. Look forward to continuing to follow the company and your progress and learning more about the great work you guys are doing. So we'll wrap up there. If anyone has any follow-up questions, please feel free to reach out to me. You can reach me at mkim@zacks, that's ZACKS.com. Thanks again, Ad. Appreciate the time.
Thanks, Michael. Take care.